Hi, welcome to 2025. Happy New Year, everybody. Not sure if you were expecting another new video today. Even I didn't really know what I wanted to do after the series wrapped up, but I know I said it a lot in the main show, but once again, thank you to those of you who watched the thing I did over the past year. It was a big project for me, a big personal commitment, something I really had to think about if I was even going to be able to deliver on, but I thought it would be good to do just like a quick and dirty post-mortem, kind of an informal thing, just kind of talking about the process of making and releasing a video every single day of the year. Maybe talk a little bit how I did it, my thoughts and feelings throughout. Just feels like a good way to wrap up and say goodbye to the whole process. If you don't know what a post-mortem is, it's generally something you do at the end of a project, or particularly a big project, where you talk about what went right, what went wrong, and you just kind of reflect on what you learned, what could have been done differently, stuff like that. And the first thing that went right that I want to talk about is just that I did it. I went 366 days uploading a video every day, and I didn't miss a single one. There were mistakes along the way. A couple videos had the wrong title. There was one video where I forgot to write in the number, one Batman video. But besides that, I'm really impressed with myself for how much this series went off without a hitch. That's thanks in large part to the second thing that really went right with this series, which was time management. That was absolutely essential. Without that, obviously you can't do something of this scale. And I was really impressed with myself at how I was able to like sort of batch and compartmentalize pieces of the series. Essentially, at the beginning, I would do an entire month of work in one sitting. I would write a month's worth of scripts, then another day I would record a month worth of audio. You get the gist. From there to final release. Towards the end, I had to cut it up into smaller chunks as the videos got longer. But yeah, a big thing with this series is that I didn't want it. In fact, I couldn't allow it to invade my personal life. This has been a big year for me in general. I don't know if you can tell, but I have moved. So that's nice. Chairs in a new place. I was and still am in an internship this year. I'm in grad school this year, still rocking a pretty solid grade, by the way. Maintaining social connections, which doesn't really come naturally to a guy as introverted as me. Staying healthy. I might be the healthiest I've been in my life, certainly close to that. So all around, this series didn't get in the way of my life. And if it did, we would have had problems, and I probably would have had to stop it, unfortunately. This is definitely not something I can justify as anything more than a passion project. For the first, like, 3/4 of the year, I think I absolutely crushed it. It took no time at all. I think most people in my life would look at the series and be like, when do you even find the time? I never hear you working on this. When do you do this? Towards October, I started to feel the heat a little bit, and then December things got a little crazy. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, that's enough about time management. Thing number 3 I want to talk about is not losing the focus of the project. So this started out, honestly, as just a way for me to figure out what my favorite games are, because I genuinely didn't know and didn't have a great way to sort of mentally process it. Algorithm, math, programming, I guess it's just a more natural way for me to think, so it really helped me out running this stuff through a program. But with the video series specifically, my main goal was not only to give a dedicated spotlight to every game I talked about, like really make it feel like I'm giving them their moment in the sun, but also remain almost exclusively positive as much as possible. And remain positive while still sounding like I know what I'm talking about when it comes to video games. I think something that is so prevalent right now with where we're at culturally is that we see negative criticism as far more intellectual. Like, finding the bad in something is more impressive and celebrated than finding the positive. I think that could not be further from the truth. I think it's a lot easier to find negative in things than positives. So yeah, celebrate these games as they deserve, point out the things they did great, sound smart while you're doing it. Yeah, just give the game that 30 to 60 seconds of celebration that it fully deserves. And also, with not losing focus on the intent, a big part of that is that this series was for me, and it had to be for me. What I mean by that, and I've said this before, is even if these videos were getting 0 views, I would have done it the full year. I've talked about how my main motivation for this series is that in the distant future, I'll be able to look back on it and watch it myself and reflect on where I was, what I thought, how I've grown. It's just a really firm document of me at age 24-ish, and what I thought at this point in my life. I mean, it's probably pretty obvious, right? Looking at the videos, all the videos are titled Game with a Number. That's it. Absolutely no clickbait, no value proposition, no reason given for anyone to want to click on the video, except that I did put a little work into the thumbnails, but I don't think they're really like clickable thumbnails. I just think they look kind of nice. And I did that because I knew if my brain flipped over and went into making videos for an audience mode, I would suddenly care way more about every little detail. I would spend way more time on things that I frankly could not spend the time on, and I would put a level of polish and pressure on these videos and this project that would be unreasonable. I would not have been able to produce this series if I had the mindset of I need to draw in an audience and I need to entertain them. Pretty much every video had one, or more likely several, bad lines of dialogue, bad line reading, bad editing, and I noticed them all, and I didn't. If I took the time to fix those things, the show wouldn't have happened. Like, there was a lot of times around the middle of this show, based on the hardware I was using, where audio would cut out really weird. It'd be like I'm talking normally, and then suddenly something would happen that sounds like that. And I heard it, couldn't do anything about it, really. It's just the circumstance I was in. Glad I fixed it. Eventually, though, that's actually the last thing that went really right that I want to talk about, although this video might make it seem like it didn't too well. I got weirdly good at recording my own audio. That might sound really boring, so I won't spend too much time on it, but like, I had to just like go into so many recording sessions for these and just like, okay, I have the time, I have to do it now. If I don't do it now, I won't have time later. What do I have? Do I have a closet? Do I not have a closet? Do I have a good mic? Do I have to borrow someone else's mic? What computer am I using? And because of that, I rapid tested so many different iterations of audio setups. I was essentially comparing and contrasting, trying new things just because I had to. And by the end, and after just doing some research on why things were sounding so different, I landed on an audio system around like the top 20 or so, or top 30 maybe, where it's the best sounding audio I've ever recorded for any video I've ever done. It's still not perfect. I have a problem with plosives I haven't been able to try and figure out yet. This is a very cheap pop filter I'm using here. Helps a little bit, not all the way. And also, I just record in my room, so there's a little bit of reverb, a little bit of echo that I haven't ironed out yet. But for an amateur production, I think I've settled on a really solid setup. I'm really happy about that. So anyone out there who knows me and needs tips on how to do a good mic setup, I've learned a thing or two over the last year. Hit me up. So those are the things that went right, and luckily the things that went right went really right. I think this was extremely successful as a project for the just fulfillment and purpose I wanted it to serve, but definitely a lot of things went wrong. Important to talk about that stuff too. The first thing that went wrong that I need to talk about, scope creep. Scope creep that infiltrates so many creative projects. Scope creep, if you don't know, is just like you're working on something and you just get ideas like, ooh, that would be cool, that would be cool, I want to add that, I want to do that. And you keep adding stuff in and it just inflates the workload, inflates the size of the project until it becomes unmanageable without you even noticing it became unmanageable. Like I said, the project was perfect, beautiful, not intrusive at all. October is when I started to feel it. It didn't become a problem, it was still perfectly manageable, but I felt the pressure in October, and two things happened in October. I started to really, we're getting to like top 100 around that time, so I start to care about the games more, meaning I have more to say. And really, I want to say more because I want the series to have an element of progression. That was kind of like an audience element that I let bleed in a little too much. So videos are getting longer, but also, probably more significantly, Boxman Top 10s. Boxman Top 10 is something I always knew I wanted to do. It's that thing I would do at the end of some videos or in the top 10 in the middle, where I would have a category, like best Mario game, and the category would fill in with the entries from the list in order from, 10 to 1, which ones I like most. It was basically a way to get like a snapshot, specific lens view on a certain category. And actually on screen right now, maybe I've already been doing this, maybe I'll do this into the next segment, I don't know yet. I'll play some Boxman Top 10s that I either forgot to do in the main show or just straight up didn't have the time to. You probably know or can tell, stats guy, data guy, I love that stuff. So I knew I wanted to even just do those kinds of investigations in just my personal time, figure out what are my 10 favorite platformers. But I figured as long as I'm going to do that anyway, it'd be fun to throw into the show. But those graphics were the longest things that it took to make. And I had to iterate on them constantly to get to ultimately the final version. And I found some processes in there to shorten the amount of time they took. By the end, they didn't really take long at all. But the process of figuring out how to get to that point definitely added more time than it was probably worth. But I really wanted to do it. Although I will say something else that went wrong, and I knew this was going to go wrong because it's baked right into the series, but I did it anyway. I really dislike ranking things and rating things. And I've talked about that in the show before, but when the series is literally a countdown, and I'm throwing in top 10s towards the end of it, I don't think it does a great job communicating that personal feeling I have, which is actually fine. I don't need to like just put my personal philosophy in this show that way. The bigger issue is that when I put things in a ranking, and I've already run into this so many times, it really makes people hone in on the numbers, the placement, and like, you know, be like, oh, this only got 40, this got 107, this got 200, this should be higher, this should be lower. I get it, it's natural. It's why I would say things that are absolutely true, by the way, in the show, where I'd be like, you know what, everything from like number 60 onward, I love enough that it feels like it could be in the top 10. That's absolutely true. Like, the margin between how much I love 55 and how much I love 7, it's a very small margin. Or I would say how I love all of the games in the countdown, and for the most part, that's pretty much true. I genuinely feel every single game I talked about is worth celebrating, and I'm happy to be the one to do that. So when I put it all in a ranking, like I promise you whatever emotions the rankings inspire, like, oh, he likes this way more than he should, or I thought he liked this a lot more. It's really not like that. The rankings in that way do misrepresent how I feel. It's just the easiest way to present this information. The truth of the matter still remains that it's just kind of a nebulous blob. I love all this stuff. And I had to do this ranking because I was curious what the ranking would be, but the ranking doesn't supersede my internal original feelings, which is just really like video games. I like all of these video games. One thing that went kinda wrong in my opinion, although no one's really like told me they agree with this, I'm gonna call it tone. Because I was super positive and celebratory the whole time, some videos, a lot of videos in my opinion, come across as just like really advertisey, or just like I'm trying to pitch the game to you or sell it to you. It was sometimes tough to feel like I was providing genuine, honest analysis when I was so committed to being positive. Like, if these were actual reviews or video essays, obviously I would not take that approach. It was just kind of an artistic statement on how I wanted the vibe to feel. So I guess it was a tonal win overall, but because of the tone, definitely some, you know, there are some things about these games that I don't like. Every single one of the games I talked about has stuff I don't like about it, and I didn't bring any of that up. A lot of these games have really common criticisms that I didn't bring up, and there's a small insecure part of me that's like, oh, I hope people didn't think I didn't notice that, or I don't understand that, or like I'm incompetent, or just don't do good analysis. And literally no one has given me any indication they feel that way. It's just an insecurity. But yeah, I hope that makes sense. I was so positive. It felt like I was just trying to pitch you something. It feels like the analysis got a little lost, and I'm worried about how that reflected on what I'm able to do in video game discussion. Completely bred out of insecurity, I'm realizing as I say this out loud. So maybe I shouldn't even include it, but I'm probably not going to cut it. Finding footage was tough. I think that's something that might go underappreciated in the show, is that I really don't control how the videos looked. I just had to look at what high-quality footage was available, usually in the form of trailers, and I threw that in there. If it looked good, cool. If it didn't, it's not a ton I can do about it. I mean, sometimes games just don't have good footage available. Looking at you, visual novels. Looking at you, games made before HD trailers were standardized. Sometimes your videos just weren't gonna look good because I didn't have time to fix it. Superlatives. I really liked superlatives as a concept. I think I did not have the ability to deliver on them fully. The superlatives were the little things I threw up underneath the number that represent the elements of the game that I particularly really like the core gameplay, or the characters, or the music, or the atmosphere, stuff like that. The point was that I can throw up the superlatives and then not have to worry about, like, okay, did I mention the characters? Did I mention the story? Did I mention the themes? Like, if I forgot to mention one of those things, it was fine, because I already identified that I liked it in the superlatives. And it does get the job done, it just didn't get the job done very well. And honestly, I think a huge portion of that is that the superlatives are just ugly. Like, I'm not an artist. I don't even know what to call them. It's white pixel art on a black background. It's the best I could do. So they don't really stand out. I bet a lot of people just didn't even like pay attention. And if they did pay attention, they were like, I don't even remember which one that represents. So once again, not a huge deal because it's not for the audience, it's for me. I'm sure I'll remember what they meant. But I think the function of like being able to represent parts of the game I like without having to spend a lot of time on it could have been done better and given more substance. I would certainly want to draw them better. I think maybe there's a way to incorporate like a short sentence with every superlative, sort of summarizing why I like that element. Maybe. I think another avenue would just be to create more superlatives. Towards the end of the series, a lot of games were getting a lot of superlatives, so it really turned into white noise towards the end. In the beginning, it was kind of special when a game got one. But if I created like 50 superlatives and they were really like specialized, like, I don't know, favorite to speed run, great like art style, great like intellectually stimulating game mechanics versus like adrenaline pumping game mechanics, best infusion of game mechanics and narrative elements, like really specialized stuff like that, then maybe they could mean a little more because they wouldn't be so generalized that, like, obviously if a game's in my top 10, I probably like most things about it a lot. I'm just spitballing here, really. The point is, superlatives worked. They could have worked better, and I wanted them to work better because I liked the idea a lot and what it did for the show. So yeah, with those things said, just overall reflections I have as I think back on things. For one, I can do anything if I have a deadline. Like, my goodness, I released 366 videos in 2024 on this channel. This is not the only YouTube channel I've ever done. I don't know if you know that. And so let's just say I'm not doing daily uploads on some other channels. And there's a lot of reasons that go into that. But I think a big one is that, like, there were days I didn't want to work on this show, but I had to, because I put so much into it and it was time sensitive, and if I missed a date, all the work would be completely just thrown into chaos and I wouldn't know how to recover. I don't know how to incorporate deadlines into video making in general, but I'm gonna have to think about that. It's hard to make a show without thinking about the audience. I kept thinking about the audience, even though, like, I said I wasn't going to. It's not like the audience ever got big, but the audience existed. And even if I wasn't, like, making choices to change the show for the sake of the audience, no offense, of course, I was still, like, thinking about it the whole time. So I should probably, if I ever do something like this again, I should probably just accept there's gonna be an audience and I should work around it and actually try and, like, make it a show that's worth watching. Very weird uploading something to YouTube, putting so much work into something, and just not only not expecting people to watch it, but kind of not wanting people to watch it. If people are gonna watch a video of mine, I want them to watch, like, my best stuff. I don't think this is my best stuff. This is fun stuff. It's tough talking about game design for games you love without coming across as, like, a pretentious know-it-all at times. Like, if I'm talking about a game I don't like and I talk about great game design, then that's fine. It's just like I'm being objective about it. If I'm talking about a game I love and I talk about bad game design, once again, that just comes across as more objective. But once I'm like, I love this game and I think it's really well done, it's like, okay, buddy, of course you think it's well done if you like it. I tried my best to write around that as best I can. Guess it's up to you guys if I actually succeeded in that. But yeah, I had a harder time than I thought, not kind of sounding like I have a stick up my butt while I talk about this stuff. And one of the biggest things, it's completely expected, but it's worth saying, tastes are already changing. There's already a good bit of stuff in this show, in this countdown, in this list, in this ranking, that I already don't agree with or question. There was some stuff that I just, like, I saw it right away and I was like, oh, that's weird. Mortal Kombat 11, way too low, and I know why it's way too low. It's because I was really excited about Mortal Kombat 1, which made me like think about all the things that like 1 was going to do better than 11, so I focused on the negative in 11. 11 should be a lot higher. But yeah, games get new content, like Friday Night Funkin', Vampire Survivors gotten new content. I know for a fact those games are gonna shoot up if I ever do this again. Even when I was just writing, it was forcing me to think about the game, and I just thought about it in new ways, made some new considerations, maybe some realizations, and was like, oh wow, I might like Ace Attorney Investigations a lot more than I thought I did. I think I was right that Street Fighter 6 is probably going to be well within the top 100 if I do this again. And it takes me a long time to warm up to something. I really need to like sit with it and process it over a long period of time to truly feel like I get this thing, I know what it is, and I like it. So games I've played more recently that I've been thinking about recently are climbing up in the ratings. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if like a Yakuza 0 enters the top 10 now. And like even something like 13 Sentinels is already top 10. Might be higher, maybe top 5, I don't know. If I do this again, and I'll never do this exact format again, but maybe I'll rank my favorite games again, like way down the line when I've had enough years that my tastes may have changed. I know for a fact it'll look super, super, super different. I mean, heck, if I did it right now, it would look super, super different. Which made it interesting, you know, later into the year when I was like, I had changed so much and yet I still had to write videos as if I was like my 2023 self. It was interesting. Not really a problem, just interesting. Maybe you're wondering what's gonna happen to this channel now, and I don't have anything to promise at this point. I have no big series planned for 2025. But I will say I'm not done uploading here. I also don't think I'll upload for a while. I don't really need a break because the series wasn't that hard to make, but just I need to focus on other non-video making areas of life for a little bit. But I don't plan for this channel to stop here. But I also don't plan for this channel to ever kind of become like a real YouTube channel. As with the nature of the series, the entire channel is really just a creative outlet for me to do whatever I want with video content. And that's probably what this channel will always be, just kind of a place for me to do my thing and not really care about who's watching or if anyone is watching. So if sticking around to just see what I might do one day sounds appealing to you, then stick around, and also I'm flattered, thank you. But yeah, the channel will be going dormant for at least a little bit while I focus on some things in life that are not creating 10 different top 10 lists of game art. But you know, before I sign off, my favorite game of all time is Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And maybe you know, maybe you don't, but when Smash Bros. Ultimate wrapped up, they wrapped up with a giant celebratory extravaganza of all of the game's best statistics. And as I've said countless times, you already know, statistics and data right up my alley. I want to do the same thing. I want to share with you some of my favorite numbers and data from this show. So thank you for watching so much. Thank you for being here. Thanks for watching this post-mortem. I hope it was interesting in some way. I will see you again in the future. And here are all of my favorite statistics about the Jason Boxman 2024 Favorite Games Countdown that I never really gave an official name to. Literally just thought of that now. See you next time.